All right, think I'm ready to start recording. Let us begin. Oh, am I in video mode? Perhaps. All right, let us begin. Click, click, click. Hello everyone, and welcome to BHT Studios, and welcome to BHT Live episode number 14. I think I should probably do like seasons or something like that, because am I just going to keep on going 14, 15, 16? I don't know. Maybe I should have thought about that ahead of time. Thank you so much for joining. Again, I apologize for such a late notice. Hey, Steele Matthews, thanks for joining. Today's a decent day to go out shooting. It's kind of cloudy, a little bit rainy, but instead I'm here in my studio talking to y'all out in the internet verse, the YouTube universe, whatever, and wherever you are, however you are consuming this content, thank you so much. It is another week. It's been a bit of a lull since the early part of the year. I think that's kind of where CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, and the camera electronics, because photography is now part of CES, it's part of the electronics release, because there's such a merge between photography, videography, and as well as merging with things like Instagram, right? Without Instagram, without digital cameras or digital photography, there really isn't an Instagram, really. I mean, you can scan your photos, but that'd be a very slow process. And manufacturers have been pumping out things here and there. You guys let me know if you want to talk about anything specific. I do keep up with the news. I don't really have the time to review everything, as you guys have been following me for years know. I just kind of pick and choose what I like, including I did the A7C back in November. You guys saw it, and I did ask for some newer stuff, but you know, I'm at the bottom of Sony's list of who gets what, and so I did ask for their 40mm f2.5 and as well as their 24mm f2.8. It's kind of their Fujicron, if you can call it that, where it's a G Master series. It's a higher end series, but it's not like an f1.2, f1.4. It's the aperture is reasonable, but the build quality and the features and supposedly the optical quality is made with the same precision as their other faster aperture series G Master lenses, which I think actually is a good thing. And Leica has been following this template for many years, right? Just because the lens is a Summilux versus a Summicron, so an f1.4 versus an f2, Leica didn't necessarily make it better, like using cheap plastic on the f2 versus, you know, more premium metal. They did have limited edition lenses and stuff like that, but in general, the aperture that the lens was, the maximum aperture wasn't the deciding factor of if they were going to make it cheaply or not, right? And so I think that's a good thing that Sony is doing, and Fujifilm as well, for going the opposite direction, which is creating more premium lenses like this one here, the 18mm f1.4, which I know for a lot of people this is a controversial lens, and to me it's not really controversial at all. They should have probably created this earlier, because there was a 35-1.4, a 23-1.4, a 56-1.2, a 50 f1. You know, there's these fast primes, and although this is probably the least popular focal length to create and the 16-1.4, right? So they really needed to make an 18-1.4, and I think a lot of people were more looking forward to an update to the 18 f2, which they should definitely do, but to me that's a completely different conversation. An 18 f2 and an 18-1.4, different conversation. This is a Fujilux, or their more premium, kind of pro-centric, I guess, people willing to carry around the size and weight, versus their Fujicron series, more reasonably priced but still good build quality, WR, fast stepping motor for quiet, fast, accurate autofocus, stuff like that. So I think those are two different conversations. I'm glad they have this lens here. Not for everyone, but it's for people like me. And actually, I was going to show you guys something just to show you I do mean what I talk about. Is back. So I do have my two main systems. Oh, I didn't bring a body. Is like in the old film days, I had my rangefinder system, and then I had a Minolta manual focus system as well as a Minolta autofocus system. My autofocus system was for client work, right? Sports, weddings, portraiture, stuff like that. And then I had my fun kit, which was my manual focus stuff. I could still do work with it, but I didn't really shoot sports or anything like that with this. But this is, I keep on showing this to you guys. This is their 28. This is my 28F 2.5 lens, manual focus, but I also have a 20, sorry for the slow autofocus too, I'm actually using my XH1. This is a 24mm f2.8. So, I had a 24 and a 28. And even when it came to my autofocus systems, I had right here, a 28mm, where is it here? 28? Wrong way. There we go. A 28mm f2.8. I did actually have a, I don't know why it's not focusing. Why is it not focusing? XH1. Anyways, this is a 28mm. And then here is my 24mm, if you can see that. 24mm f2.4. So again, I have a 28 and a 24. And now with the Fujifilm system, here is their 16mm right here, 16 f1.4, and here is the 18 1.4. So again, 28, 24, 27 really, and 24. So it's not weird to have both a 24 and a 28. It's not weird to have a 16 and 18. I've been doing it for decades. To me, I shoot them quite differently. I'm gonna be shipping this back to Fujifilm. Sorry for shipping this back late. I think I was supposed to send it back by Friday. Oops, it's Sunday. So I'm gonna try to get it back to them tomorrow. So if you're watching Fujifilm, my apologies. Thanks for joining. Let me just see you guys' comments here. A Mac, A Donald, Cameron, Mahesh, thanks for joining. Cafe YVR, how's it going, buddy? Tubinin, someone's asking about, Tubinin is asking about the M10 monochrome. Has too many megapixels for handheld steady work compared to the perfect M246 of 24 megapixels. I think that because it's monochrome, it is a little bit different. I think for full frame, anywhere between 36, to me 36 is ideal. 36 to 40 something is fine, but you are right, and you don't even have to go as far back as the M246. Just go back just to the original M10 at 24 megapixels. I think the pixel density is very nice if you are looking for good high ISO performance. And I think that for APS-C, 24, 26 right now is really nice, unless there's some leap in technology like square pixels, in which I think that's what the XH2 is going to be all about. It's going to be all about the latest technology. I'm going to constantly check my monitor here, guys, because again, I'm using the XH1. I forgot my XT4 back at home, and because I took it off I took the 28, the 18 f1.4 off the XT4 and put it on the X Pro 3 because it makes more sense for me when I shoot street photography instead of having to go like flip out, flip around, and then do street. And so I switched to the X Pro 3, but the problem with the X Pro 3 is it doesn't have HDMI out, which I have no idea why Fujifilm just decided to remove it. All they have is USB Type-C and a 1/8" headphone / remote jack on this side. So no HDMI out, so I can't use this for YouTube. The way I'm setting it up now, I can use Fujifilm's webcam system thing, but I don't like using it. I prefer using a video capture card, which I'm using right now on the XH1. But autofocus, obviously, you can tell is not as good as on the X Pro 3 or on the XT4 or on the XT30, XS10, XE4, any of the newer sensor processor combinations that we've been getting for the past 2 or so years. Kevir, Summicron, you could argue that is higher quality optically than the Summilux. Yeah, I mean, some of the Summiluxes at f1.4 weren't that great. Like the 35 Summilux, the latest, newest 6-bit one, I prefer the Summicron over the Summilux. But you do pay more, right? If you look at the price, it is more complicated to make a Summilux versus a Summicron. And so people do pay more in size and weight as well as in price, but in practical use often optically, as Kevir is saying, one may consider the optics of the Summicron better versus the Summilux. But in terms of build quality, that's kind of what I was focused on. Is in terms of build quality, like if you grab a Summicron and a Summilux, and sometimes even some of the limited edition ones that are even slower, sometimes they're built even better because it's a limited run lens, right? And so I think a lot of people that are newer to photography just automatically assume because if it's a brighter aperture, it must mean it's a better lens. And I think not even as a general rule, that's not always the case. There are special, like for instance, in Leica world, the 50mm f2, so it's a Summicron Apo. The apochromatic lens is more expensive than the 50mm Summilux, right? Even though the Summicron Apo is actually slower, but there's apochromatic technology and the glass is larger, and it's just the more expensive piece of glass because of the technology, and optically it should be more corrected. And so, yeah. So anyways, good point. Hey, Brooklyn girl, Linda, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Haircut is good. Good job, camera girl. I know she kind of sort of made me not wear a hat because she said she cut my hair. Why do I hide it under her hat? And so I decided to keep it. There's a little bit of I'm not going to show you the mistake because camera girl will say it's not a mistake. But anyway, she's definitely getting better. And yeah, thank you. And she's like, long as you have hair, just flaunt it. So okay, there you go. Ever try IR photography? I did do IR photography, but the old film IR photography, not the new way with the digital, if you send in your camera to someone. I know this Fujifilm made an XT1 infrared for law enforcement, and I did ask them if I could borrow it, and they said, no, you're not allowed to unless you are law enforcement. But I would love to. I think it looks great. I know you can sort of mimic that look with some filters and some playing around in Lightroom, but to convert one of my older cameras into infrared, I think that'd be cool. Like maybe send in my XH1 and have it converted to infrared. I think it costs about $500 to get that done, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. But yeah, no, but digitally, no, I have not played with infrared, but that is something I'd be interested in. Let me see here. Kevir, the new Hasselblad 907X. Yeah, those are pretty cool. I haven't a chance to play with it, so I can't really talk about the image quality or if the implementation worked out well or not, but I hope to test more cameras once I get bigger, and not just for the fact of being bigger, but as I get bigger, I have more income, and with more income, I can actually hire people, and when I can hire people, I can get through more reviews and get them to do different things that I don't really have time for. Like right now, I wish I was out shooting with the 18-1.4. And actually, Fujifilm did extend my loan on the GFX 50S with the 50 pancake, probably because nobody wants it at this time, which is cool for me. I don't care. I actually do like this camera. I definitely noticed a lot of, it's starting to feel like a 4-year-old camera. It's getting a little bit long in terms of, just like the XH1, right? It's running the same X processor Pro, which is the 3rd generation processor for Fujifilm, and it's really starting to show its age, and I do hope that there is a Mark II version of the GFX 50S, and definitely a drop in price, because this is way too expensive. It's 50, on B&H right now, it's $5,500 US for the GFX 50S, and for another $500, you get the GFX 100S. And even if you minus the 100 megapixels, which that in itself isn't what most of us are really excited about. It's having the X processor 4, and it's having the newer sensor technology with the on-sensor phase detect. So autofocus is good. It's because of the built-in IBIS. It's because of using the newer battery instead of this older battery that basically took 1.5 of the MP NPW 126S battery. They made 1.5 of them and made this weird chunky battery. And so the new one uses the new NP235, which is on the XT4. And for all those things, you are getting, and then, you know, double the megapixels. And you're only paying $500 more. So if the GFX 100S is $6,000 US, then this should be like $4,500 at most. 5,000. That's my thinking, and right now it's 5,500. So who would pay $5,500 for this if you can pay $500 more and get the GFX 100S? Well, it's because the GFX 100S is probably going to be still backordered for the next 3 to 4 months because it's selling so well. But I think another reason why it's selling so well is because the price of this is too much. And my guess is the reason why they haven't dropped the price of the 50S is because there probably isn't a lot left in stock. And because of that, they're thinking, why would we drop the price for it just to be sold out in minutes, right? So let's just leave the price where it is until we can catch up on the orders of the GFX 100S. And once they're caught up, then maybe they will drop the price of this or just discontinue it and create a GFX 50S Mark II, have it still 50 megapixels, but put in the newer sensor technology with the on-sensor phase detect. I don't know if they would put IBIS in it because that would be too much of a direct competition, but still keep it 50 megapixels, put the X Processor 4 in here so they can do other things that this older processor can't do, and then price that camera at like $5,000, right? So $1,000 less, and still maybe keep it modular. And maybe that's the one thing that the advantage of the 50S has over the 100S is 100S is more simplified, non-removable EVF. It's not even I mean, it is an EVF, but this is kind of an accessory shoe, so you don't even have to put an EVF in here. You can either cap it off or put a monitor or whatever else you want to put on here. You can use it as well. This does come with a grip/battery pack, which the 100S does not have, which is weird. They should make one for it. But anyways, other than that, everything else about the 100S is better than the 50S. Let me just try to catch up to the comments here, guys. The Guido Schultz, missing HDMI out of the X Pro 3 is a design flaw. Yeah, I know why they did it. Guido, I know why they did it. Because they're like, this is a photographer-centric camera. But same as the X100V, and that has HDMI out, and the XE4 has an HDMI out. So I think they went too far to, like, you know, to the left or the right, whichever way you want to say. They went too far one direction, which is like, this is just for stills. A stills photographer doesn't need HDMI out, which actually is not true, because if you're in the studio, you can use HDMI out and put it to a monitor or have a external recorder and actually record directly out to a external device. And also, again, if you're in a studio, you can send it directly out to something where the model or other stakeholders can, you know, look at what you're actually capturing. And then they might say, well, the X Pro 3 is not really a studio camera. Whatever the case may be, I'm pretty sure the X Pro 3 will see the return of the HDMI out. But I do actually really like this articulating screen. For those of you that haven't tried it, I think you'll like it, especially if you are a street shooter, especially if you like shooting film and you're kind of used to like the Hasselblad waist level finder or even the Rolleiflex twin lens reflex, and you're kind of used to shooting kind of down by your waist and looking straight down. This is just, it makes a lot of sense. And then when you are really focused on using the OVF, EVF, then you could just close this up and then you don't even have to worry, which also is why I like the XT4s. You can flip the articulating screen completely in and then cover, and that's pretty much how I shoot the XT4, just kind of covered up like this. But if I do need to shoot at waist level, XT4 is a pain. X Pro 3 is way faster, way more efficient as a street shooter, and that's where I kind of agree with Fujifilm engineers that this kind of articulating screen makes sense on an X Pro 3. It would make sense on an XT series type camera, and they did make the right decision with the XE4, giving it the X70 articulating screen, right? That kind of flip up. Although the X70 is nice, they do protect the ribbon better right there. It's protected with this little metal plate. But the X70 is lower. The bottom of the screen is lower than the XE4. It goes right up on the XE4. So I do like this style articulating screen though, especially for waist level shooting, or if you're doing kind of overhead type, either videography or photography, having this type of screen is really nice. So XE4 is great. I just think for someone who wants a compact prosumer Fujifilm camera body, I would recommend the XS10 over the XE4, and then the XE4, and then the XT30. Although in terms of ergonomics, I would actually think the XT30 is the best out of all those three, but Fujifilm's refusing to update the firmware to put the latest, greatest film simulations, the latest, greatest focus features, including the focus limiter that's built in, and some other cool things that are in the newest firmware. They're not letting it happen on the XT30. And the moment they do, I would consider the XT30 as a backup to my XT4 and my X Pro 3 as something like a small studio camera, or if I'm on vacation and I don't want to take my X100F, which I have not upgraded yet because I'm still happy with the X100F. The X100V is superior to this, including the lens quality, including the processor, including having that really cool kind of flush articulating screen, but I kind of don't feel like spending $1,400. I'm pretty happy with the X100F, but if I had the XT30 and the 27 pancake or something like a small light compact lens, and I'm going on vacation and I want some decent video and decent autofocus, I may consider the XT30 with a compact prime versus dragging around an X100F. J.E. Graffer, you saw my IG story and came right away to catch the show. Thank you very much. Yeah, I did a quick YouTube story, I don't know what they call it, post, and then a Twitter, I tweeted, and then I did an IG stories very quickly. I'm still kind of struggling with, like the night before, set this all up, and then when I go into this, this app, I think the problem is I do it all on my Mac in YouTube, and then I try to get it going on my Windows PC, and I think somehow there's kind of a disconnect between using the streaming key, and so I'm doing something wrong, and I'm kind of isolated, and again, I don't have an assistant to work with me, and so I don't really have the time. I rushed over here. I had lunch with Camera, you know, enjoyed the morning with Camera Girl, had a nice lunch. She starts piano at 1 p.m. teaching her students, and so I take off at 1, and then I have half an hour to come here and set everything up, and I haven't been here in a couple of days, so it takes me a little bit longer, so I do apologize for not giving more warning. Tubini saying 90% of Megan photographers use the Summicron. I prefer them as well. Small and sharp. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have the 28 Summicron. There is a new 28 Summilux. It's too big for me. I don't have it with me, but this, you know, 28 Summicron is basically like this size. But you know, if you look at the older pre-aspherical Summiluxes, like the 35 Lux, it's very small. It's really nice. So I am looking for a pre-aspherical, even if it's a made in Canada, so a Alcan, Ernest Lights Canada 35 Summilux, I think that would be great for the way I use it, which is for night photography as well as for black and white. With the spherical lenses, the newer ones, it is nice if you are shooting maybe during the day to not get chromatic aberration and stuff, but I just don't see it. I've tested the 35 Summilux in Hong Kong at night, and even if there is chroma, I don't see it because the lights are all insane anyways. So yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people who prefer the 50 Cron versus the 50 Lux, and I mean, they got the 50 Apple, right, which is a really, really beautiful lens. And at full frame 50 f2 versus a full frame 50 1.4, I don't really recommend shooting at 1.4 unless you're shooting at infinity. And that's kind of why I wanted 35 Lux. If you guys have seen my photos in Hong Kong, I am shooting it basically at infinity. So I'm not shooting 1.4 for the shallow depth of field. I'm shooting 1.4, so it's a difference between me hand holding something at a 30th of a second or 1/15th of a second. And that one stop difference is not about bokeh. It's all about hand holdability at night. And so that's why I would want a 35-1.4. With the 28 f2, I can hand hold it down to as low as about 1/8 of a second, but that's really, and that's at infinity, right? So that's kind of cutting it there. Like I probably can't go any lower than that. And but at 35, I don't think I can hand hold a 35 millimeter lens at 1/8 of a second. I think it would have to be a 15th, and that's kind of why I'm looking for 35 lux. But I want a pre-aspherical because it's much smaller. It's all about, as you said, Tubini, it's all about small and sharp, right? Because at f2, my 28 Summicron, f2 is like, beautifully tack sharp. Every 35 lux that I've shot with, that isn't shot at infinity, so you're trying to shoot something at, like 5 feet or 8 feet, it vignettes like insane. Even my Summicron does vignette, especially because it's a 28, but a 35 Summilux, it's not that sharp at wide open, other than the center. It's reasonably sharp, but by the time you stop it down to like f2, f2.8, it starts to sharpen up really nice. But a Cron or an Elmarit or an Elmar at f2, like the 28 f, someone had actually talked about it earlier, Kavir saying that Leica 28 f2.8, the Elmar, is a great lens. Actually, when I was talking to Tom Smith, he runs the Leica Academy for North America, great guy. Maybe he's watching. Hey, Tom. He said, someone had said to him, what is a sleeper lens? A lens that a lot of people don't really consider, but is actually a really good lens. Tom said the 28 f2.8, the Elmer, he said that is a sleeper lens. That he said it is one of the, at the time, so this is 5 or 6 years ago, they've added a few lenses since then, but at the time he said this is a sleeper lens. And for him, he said it is one of the best rendering lenses. It's tack sharp, wide open. And he said it is a great lens that isn't that expensive. So if you can afford it and you shoot street and you shoot during the day and you like the 28 millimeter focal length in full frame, then the Leica 28 millimeter f2.8 is a fantastic lens to get. J-Grapher, what M mount lens would you recommend to use with the Fujifilm? It kind of comes down to your field of view, Jay, because I have the 28 f2, but on my Leica, my Summicron, my 28 Summicron, but on the Fujifilm, it crops down to, it works out to be about like a 45 mil lens, and that kind of, the focal length doesn't work out for me. So I would, for me personally, I think any lens that's 35 and above is probably a good, that'll work out. So the 35 lens on a M mount lens. So even like I say M mount because you can get a Voigtlander and you can get other lenses from, let me see here, not per gear, like 7 Artisans, TT Artisans. You get those lenses and put it on. I'm trying not to sneeze. The way I do it is kind of push my nose down. Do you guys do that too? Sorry. I don't want to sneeze in front of you all. But 35 works out to be like a 50 mil equivalent, right? And so sure, you're still cropping in, but you're not losing the overall look. Like a 28 has like a wide angle look, and when it becomes a 45, you lose it. So I almost never put my 28 on my Fujifilm, but I will put my 40, because that 40 becomes like a 60, and it's kind of a weird focal length, right? So I would say the best M mount lens to put on a Fujifilm is any of the 35s, and the Voigtlanders have some really good lenses in that focal range, but as well as the TT Artisans, 7 Artisans, Per Gear makes some cool lenses in the 35. So I would definitely give those a try, as well as some, I mean, M mount's been around since 1954, so there's been a lot of different manufacturers that have either made M mount or the LTM, the Leica thread mount lenses, including Ricoh and Minolta and other manufacturers have made M mount or thread LTM lenses. So it's fun to experiment with them. But you know, for instance, if you get like a 21 mil Leica lens, it's gonna crop to like a 30 something mil, right? 30 mil lens basically. It kind of loses its charm, right? So that's why I say, like, why spend the extra money to get a ultra wide angle Leica lens only to lose that ultra wide field of view? If anything, go 35 and above. So even if you get like a 90, it acts like a 135. And if you get a 135, it acts like a whatever, 160 or something like that, right? So actually the 90 would be kind of nice. If you can get like a nice 90, I have a 90. It's the Minolta one, the M Rokkor 90 f4. That becomes a 135 equivalent when you put it on a Fujifilm. I think that's that'd be a fun lens. And a lot easier to focus, right? Because a 135 mil focusing patch on an M mount is so tiny that you're probably going to miss focus, and that's why an f4 makes sense, right? I had a Leica 135 f2, or was it a 2.8? I can't remember. But on an M mount, couldn't focus it. I just kept on misfocusing. The only way I could do it was to put the EVF on the M mount, on a digital Leica M body. And then I could focus peak and kind of focus, but even that was kind of hokey. And that's why I recommend a lot of people with a lot of M mount lenses that are more telephoto, that it's great to get a Leica SL or SL2, just for the fact that it has a really nice EVF, and it makes focusing your more telephoto lenses much easier than trying to focus those things on a M mount body without an EVF. GSD Wong, hello GSD Wong, nice, thanks for joining. Chile, Patricio Wakera, how's it going? From Chile, welcome. Kevir, doesn't Sony make the medium format sensors for both Fujifilm and Hasselblad? Yeah, Sony makes medium format sensors for probably 80% of the market. But it's funny, they don't make a medium format camera because they don't have the optical technology, and you kind of need a bit of history. If you notice, there isn't really a newcomer to, I mean there is, but in terms of like the brands that do medium format well, like Hasselblad and Fujifilm, is because they've been doing it for decades. So they have the optics technology, although Hasselblad doesn't really anymore. In fact, they never really did. I wrote an article about that in Medium Format magazine, but Hasselblad was a systems designer. They created a system, and then other manufacturers made things for the system, right? So they open up the design so that Zeiss and Voigtlander and other manufacturers can make lenses, and then other companies can make backs, and you can make viewfinders and different things like that. But Hasselblad, even if the lens said Hasselblad on it, they didn't actually make it. They actually got a lens manufacturer to design it for them. And the newer Hasselblad lenses now, I forgot the name of the company now, but it is a Japanese manufacturer that makes all the newer Hasselblad lenses. And it's not Fujifilm. It's a smaller Japanese brand. I forgot the name. If one of you guys might remember, you could just leave it in the comments down there. But yeah, Sony does make the sensors. Patricio asking about the X70, if I would recommend it in 2021. Yes, if you shoot stills and you are okay with 16 megapixels, the camera's fine. I mean, think about the iPhone. The iPhone is 12 megapixels and it's fine for most people, right? And so for 16 megapixels, for shooting stills, the X70 is great. The only thing is make sure you buy enough batteries, because the batteries, it uses a smaller, even the X100 used to use the smaller battery. The, forgot the name of this one here, but it's tiny. It's a tiny little battery, and so make sure you have 2 or 3 of these. But other than that, I think this is a great camera. X70. I think it's gonna go down as one of those classic digital cameras that aren't being made anymore. The one thing I wish it had a threaded shutter release, but as you can see, it does not. There you go. Where all the X100s have always had that threaded shutter release, and with that, of course, you can add a brass shutter release, like I have here on the X Pro 3. This is one here is from Retro Photo York on Instagram, and great guy. Go check out his Instagram account, and once their border opens up, you're gonna see me and Retro Photo York doing some cool stuff on the YouTubes as well as on Instagram. Kavir wondering if they'll ever do a GFX version of the X100. I hope they do. I think a lot of us have been asking Fujifilm to create. I mean, they pretty much ruled the rangefinder medium format non-interchangeable lens cameras all through the 1970s and 80s and 90s, right? Like the Texas Leica. They were the king of the rangefinder, kind of like almost like a point and shoot medium format camera, right? Especially with the GA645 series, because it was auto load, it was auto focus, auto wind. Everything was automated, but it was medium format. It was a non-interchangeable lens system, and but it was great. They had a zoom version of it, the GA645ZI or ZI for my American friends, and it had basically like a 28 to 50 zoom, which was fine for a medium format, 28 to 60 maybe. So it's only a 2x zoom, but it's a great camera. And back in the old Mania Focus days, they had tons. They had a 6.45. They had I'm not sure if they ever had a 6.6, but definitely a 6.7 and 6.8 and a 6.9. And often they had a W or a wide version. So at times they would have like a 6.7 standard wide, 6.8 standard wide, 6.9 standard wide. So they have 6 large, sort of like Texas Leica, large medium format rangefinder fixed lens cameras. And so that's kind of their legacy. And I'm actually surprised that they have yet to create a medium format, digital medium format X100 camera. I think it would sell really well. I would definitely consider buying it, and they would probably put a I mean, you could already see with this lens design with the 50S, they can make a pancake. So if they created either a 50 or a 45 mil f3.5 or f4, I know everyone's like, we want an f2.8. We all want f2.8, but at what expense of size and weight, right? So, and also remember that with a fixed lens, you know, this is mounted so that the lens does not stick back very far. But if you even notice like the Mamiya series, the Mamiya 6, Mamiya 7, half the lens is inside the camera, and that's what they would do with the medium format X100, is that whatever lens they put on there, because it's fixed and he doesn't have to interchange, they would basically put the lens, half the lens would be inside. So you can see already how small this kit is, this 50 f3.5. If they could fit half of it on the inside, then they can definitely make it almost like a pancake. Like I have the X100F, I have the X70 lens hood on it, but I mean, this is reasonably pancake, right? That's really thin. Why is it not focusing? Here we go. But as you can see, that little circle, I always mention this, if you ever notice on cameras, they give you a little circle with a line through it. That shows you where the sensor is. It's picking up on my nose. Come on, XH1. That's how far back the sensor is, right? And if the sensor is that far back, that means the lens probably has come up to here. See, so this lens is here, but half the lens probably goes inside, or more than half the lens goes inside. Versus something like X Pro 3, look where its focus plane is. It's way up here. Remember the X100F was way back here? This is way over here, right? The reason why the X100F has a sensor so far back is because the lens is so far into the body, because they don't need to worry about the closeness of the rear element to the sensor, because this is all sealed and shut. So the X100 medium format, whatever they decide to call it, an GFX 1, they can't call it GFX 100 because that already exists. But whatever they call it, GFX 200? No, that would sound like it's 200 megapixels. Whatever they call it, it would be reasonably compact, right? You can already sort of look at this, minus the hump here because of the battery. They could still, and because they are using the NPW235, the same battery that's in the XT4, if they're putting that into the GFX series now, they could probably fit it into the hand grip, right? So they can keep it reasonably thin like the GFX 100S, but because the lens will go so deep into the body, it would still be a kind of a compact type camera. So I think that would be cool. And you know, price it at maybe $4,000, $4,500 US. I'm not sure what you guys are willing to pay for something like that, but it's not going to be cheap. But you can see what they're selling the GFX 50R for right now, right? I think, isn't it like $4,500 now, or even less if you add a lens to it? So if they can make a GFX 50R, at least selling it for $4,500, because I think they're trying to get rid of it, I think they could definitely make a GFX 100 medium format fixed lens, kind of a point and shoot. I think that'd be cool. Pogo saying, thinking as well as the moment what digital medium format suits me, GFX 50 versus Hasselblad H4D or the 5D. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I really like about, I think the H4, correct me if I'm wrong, Pogo, but I think that the Hasselblad, they all use leaf shutter. So if you do use adapters, you do have to be concerned that, you know, you could only use it as electronic shutter mode. As long as it has that, then you can do it. But that means the sensor is always being exposed, right? And so you got to be careful about that. Where the 50S, it has a mechanical shutter, so it's not a leaf shutter. So it doesn't matter if you put a lens on the camera that doesn't have its own built-in shutter, that you can adapt almost anything. I know a lot of people have been adapting even full-frame lenses onto the GFX system, and so I think for adapting, the GFX system makes a lot more sense. Also, the way you carry it and the way you shoot with the different options and just sort of price performance, I think you're gonna, and the ecosystem, right, of Fujifilm. This lens here, this 50 f3.5 is $999. So they're now making digital medium format lenses for under $1,000 US. I mean, it's basically $1,000, right? But you can buy a brand new lens for $1,000. Made in Japan. Hasselblad lenses are all made in Japan as well. But really nice quality lens. This is a beautiful, beautiful lens. It doesn't feel like a pancake lens. It's very well designed, well constructed. Doesn't feel like it's built any. In fact, I actually like the build quality of the 50 over the 63. This feels like the build quality is better. So just having access to all the Fujifilm lenses, as well as all the different adapters and the shooting ergonomics, I would recommend the 50S over the Hasselblad. And Cafe YVR saying he still likes the, let me see here, it did jump there, sorry guys. Cafe YVR saying he still likes the X70. Yeah, if you can get a good deal on it, I say go for it. Kavir X Pro Series is actually one of the least predictable cameras out there. Yeah, you know, I kind of like that though. I like that my X Pro 3 is different. I mentioned this 100 times, but every time I go out with the X100, every time, people will comment on it. Coffee shops, grocery store checkout, clothing store, people that typically wouldn't talk to me, you know, cool hipster girls and hipster guys, that would usually just kind of ignore old man Take. If they see this around my neck, they're immediately like, oh, is that a film camera? Like, oh, that looks so cool. They kind of strike up a conversation. So if you want to strike up conversations with complete strangers, X100 series is probably number one. But number two is the X Pro 3. When I go out with this camera, people also ask, and even when I show the back, they still think it's a film camera, right? Because they don't see the full LCD screen. And so this also gets a lot of attention because it does look like a film camera if you're not into digital photography. And even if you're into digital photography but you're not really into the Fujifilm ecosystem, this could easily look like, especially when I put something like a per gear manual focus lens on here, it really does have a film vibe to it here. So let's just, there you go, right? So this is the X Pro 3. And people, I can understand why they assume that this is a film camera. And so I like the quirkiness of this camera. I've always liked quirky things that not everyone has. And so I like the X Pro 3, hence I bought it. The battery drain, Pogo talking about the battery drain on the X100. Yeah, that's sort of the same with all the NP, I keep on, let me just remember the name. The NPW 120, what is it here? The NPW 126S battery, this battery here. Yeah, when I use this battery in my studio to shoot a YouTube video, I typically have to go through two of them. And when I go on trips to Hong Kong and stuff, and I have to carry these as a main camera, and I have done that many times, I usually bring 9 of these. 3 for the morning, 3 for the afternoon, 3 for the evening. Of course, I do go back to my studio and charge up the other 3 while I grab fresh 3. But definitely the newer, the NPW 235 battery, much better, much better. You know, Fujifilm, it's great that they try to design their own battery, but you can tell that the MPW 235 battery has been designed by somebody else. Let the battery experts design their own batteries, right? Hey, Will, how's it going, buddy? Just woke up 6 a.m. How long ago did you start streaming? It depends on when 6 a.m. is for you, buddy, but it says I've been on for 45 minutes. Ohayou gozaimasu. Almorit 28 aspherical. Yeah, that's a great lens. Still shooting with my X100T. I know guys that are still shooting with the original X100. Caviar, wish Leica made more of the 28 f2.8 aspherical in silver. I have a silver camera. Oh, I didn't even know that there was a silver version of the 28 f2.8. Is there a silver? If there is, that's awesome. I've never seen it. Pogo, I need two lenses still, a 50 Cron and a 21 or 18 Super Almar. Yeah, I am considering the 21. I really like the 21. I shot it the last time I was in Hong Kong for my Hong Kong Neon project. Beautiful. I don't know about going to 18. I think I'm going to start getting a little bit too much distortion. Although I know I could still, once the neg is scanned, I know I can still kind of adjust that in post. But yeah, those are great. I don't have a 50 Cron. I only have a 40 M Rokkor and I have a 28, and I think a 21 will round out my system. So 21, 28, and 40. And then maybe a 75. Who knows? Let me just try to catch up here. Fashionably late greetings from Las Vegas, hub of the West. Hey Adam, thanks for joining. I can't wait to get down to Vegas again. The last time I was there was honeymoon in Vegas with Camera Girl, and that was in 1998. And that's when I bought. A lot of you guys know the story. This is when I bought my Ricoh GR1. My GR1 hasn't been to Las Vegas since 1998, and I would love to return and take more photos using this camera that I've had for 23 years, coming up in a week. Camera Girl and mine's 23rd wedding anniversary. I can't believe I've been with Camera Girl for that long. And I can't believe that this camera has lasted me this long. Although I did get it fixed, right? The leaf shutter in the GR1 went, and I had to get it to Frankenstein by Vishal from Camera Film Photo in Hong Kong. His repair master fixed it for me and basically charged me for his cost to do it, which was still 250 Canadian, so like 180 US dollars, which is a lot of money, but this was a wedding gift from Camera Girl, and it was worth it for me just for the memories, or I could have just bought another one of these for about maybe 300 bucks. So if this goes again, this will become a sort of a bookshelf, kind of a trophy piece, sort of like I shot this to death until it died on me twice, and put it on a bookshelf and just have good memories about this camera, and just buy another Ricoh GR1 because I like the abuse. I like buying cameras that keep on breaking on because I just love that camera. Although, you know what? I actually might get a 28 Ti instead. The Nikon 28 Ti instead of another Ricoh GR1 because I like the 28. I don't think I can ever really afford the Minolta TC1. Although I'm a Minolta guy, it'd be awesome to have it. It's a really nice camera too, but I have the 35 Ti. It would be nice to get both a 28 and a 35 Ti. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not wishing for this to break, but since it's still alive, there's no need for me to buy a 28 Ti or a Minolta TC1. But if this does die, I'm saying, if it does, Take will shed a tear and then put this on a bookshelf and then start hunting for a 28mm film point and shoot camera. I'm excited. Voigtlander 1521 are sharp on Fuji as well. Yeah, I'm sure they're great, but the problem is, again, you gotta take that crop into. I wish there is a booster, isn't there, that keeps the field of view by optically correcting for the crop and still keep the maximum aperture as well. Isn't there something like that? Does it exist for Fujifilm from M mount to Fujifilm? Let me know in the comments. If so, I would love to give it a try. Toronto Boris, how's it going, Toronto Boris? Have you tried the body cap lenses? They've all reached out to me, including Per Gear and a couple of other brands, they've reached out to me. I just said no. I wasn't really interested in it. If you guys want me to, I mean, I guess I could try. I think it'd be kind of funny almost to even try vlogging with it. But we'll see. And also, it looks like, how's the connection and how's the volume? I should have, that's usually the first thing I ask. Volume is good. The last time, it was like the 45-minute mark when I realized I still had the on-screen information and no one had said anything. And then when I turned it off, then I noticed in the comments someone had said it. But I think it was at the 45-minute mark when he actually had mentioned saying, hey, why do you have all that on? It's distracting. So let me know how the audio and the video is. But it looks like I'm getting little circles there. So maybe I'm getting some... It says the connection is excellent, but we'll see what happens. They're being made in Japan. I think that's the problem. They're being made in Japan in this line. And they're trying to catch up. And maybe it's the same line that they're making the X100Vs. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But if they're out of stock, maybe they're pumping out more in Japan, but they're struggling to keep up with the GFX 100S. And whatever else they're making behind the scenes that we're not aware of that's going to come out. Because we know that there is going to be another... I'm not sure if Fujifilm did say it's another f1.4 lens. Did they say that? But there is another lens coming, and it might not be made in the Philippines, which the 18 f1.4 is. It might be made in Japan. And so if so... and there's rumors of more Mark II lenses coming out. And so, you know, they may just be swamped in Japan. But if they're sold out, then that's good for Fujifilm. It means they're really popular. But sucks for us that we have to wait. Pentax medium format should update to save itself. Closer bond to their current popular medium format film cameras, 6.7 cameras. Yeah, I mean, Ricoh Pentax is really struggling in terms of resources for R&D. I think they're focused on the wrong thing. They just came out with a new DSLR. I don't know why they did that. And I understand why they're thinking like it's too late to go to mirrorless full frame. I think they're right. Imagine Pentax trying to get into mirrorless full frame to compete against Sony, Canon, Nikon, and then the L mount alliance, which would be Panasonic, Leica, Sigma, and then still compete with DSLR. Like, I think it's too late for Pentax to transition at this time because it's a shrinking market, and for them to be profitable, they'll have to dominate over everybody else, and this is their first entry into it. So I think they've kind of screwed themselves. They made really bad decisions leading into the current state of interchangeable lens cameras. The Ricoh cameras are doing really well, and so I think they should focus on maybe expanding the Ricoh line. They did have the GXR that didn't do well here in North America, so I think they should maybe think about bringing back the GXR series, updated with the latest, greatest that's already in the new GR3. And as you said, think about updating the Pentax 645. They won't update the 6.7 because Sony doesn't make a sensor that big. That's the problem. And even if they did, I don't know how many people would buy a Pentax to do that. Because if they make the sensor for Pentax, that means Fujifilm also has access to it, as well as Hasselblad and Leica and Phase 1/Mamiya that have access to it. So I still think, you know, Pentax is really struggling, and I don't really see an out for them. Like even Nikon, their full-frame mirrorless cameras are designed very well from what I hear from people, and I played around with it. It's really nice. The glass is really nice, and they're struggling, and they're making a really good camera, right? And so Pentax hasn't even proven themselves to make a really good ILC body for a very long time, other than the K1, which should have come out 10 years ago, but it came out just maybe 5 years ago or so. Or when it came out 5 years ago, it should have come out 10 years before that, is what I'm saying. So it should come out 15 years ago. But to go into full frame, you got to be making flagships. If you're not, then you're better off to go into APS-C, because right now pretty much Fujifilm rules APS-C. Like their closest competition is probably Sony, and I don't know too many people that have Sony APS-C. They're all going full frame. So Fujifilm pretty much rules the APS-C market. So if Pentax wants to get into an interchangeable lens market, it would be APS-C. If they were smart, that's what they would do. And even then, they're going against a juggernaut. They're going against Fujifilm, right? That would be a very difficult transition. And even with mount adapters, the DSLRs, they have a back flange distance of like this, and mirrorless is like this. So their adapters will all be huge, right? Let me just grab a Minolta mount adapter here. These are pretty much when you adapt a 35 or any SLR mount to a mirrorless. This is kind of the size you're gonna get, right? This is the thickness. So even if Pentax converts to APS-C mirrorless and says, but we have our old legacy lenses. You need adapters that are going to be this thick, and so their lenses won't be that small and compact. It's going to take them years to develop these new mirrorless APS-C lenses, which they would go to the mother company, which is Ricoh, and say, hey, we'd love $50 million to make 4 new lenses and have it out in market in the next 3 years. I don't see it happening unless they're already working on it, but there's been no rumors of it. So I really am, if I was Ricoh Pentax, I would focus on the GR line. Make a GR21. Make an ultra-wide Ricoh GR point and shoot, and then have the GR3, and then come up with the GXR, which was an interchangeable lens and sensor combo that you can change stuff like that out. I think they should pursue that. That would have a better consumer brand recognition, like the GR series, so the GR21, GR3, and the GXR Mark II, and that would probably be more popular than having something like a Pentax mirrorless system. Erwin, why did Fujifilm quit the octagonal sensor of the Fujifilm S3 Pro back then? Why are they not implementing the X-Trans sensor in the GFX line? Yeah, so good question, Erwin, because in 2012, 2011, they did have their own sensor factory, the Exmor sensors that they had in their cameras, and they were working with Panasonic to create their own sensor. So it would have been probably kind of like a Fujifilm Pentax Tower Jazz kind of a collaboration to come up with an organic sensor that's going to have a global shutter. And that's what kind of delayed the X Pro 2 way back in that time period. And ultimately they realized there were, maybe even half a decade behind, to get to where they wanted to get. So although Fujifilm didn't abandon the project, it's at like number 100 on their list of things that they're working on. And for the quickest, easiest solution for them to be able to come up with an X Pro 2 with the latest, greatest technology, they had to go to Sony and get Sony to create their sensors with the X-Trans technology. The reason why they don't add the X-Trans to their medium format camera, and this is from Fujifilm, they said that the reason is because there's enough resolution in the digital medium format that it can overcome moire, it can overcome the issues that they were having with a lower megapixel count sensor, including 35 or full frame and APS-C. If you remember the earliest digital cameras that were APS-C and 35mm, they all had anti-aliasing filters to reduce the moire. If you notice all the newer cameras on 35mm and APS-C, they've removed the AA filter. Even the Ricoh GR3 hasn't removed, although I think there is a digital anti-aliasing software in here that you could do it digitally, but not with an actual AA filter. And for those of you that don't know what an anti-aliasing filter is, it's almost like smudging Vaseline in front of the sensor. It actually kind of purposely de-sharpens it, because moire happens when something is way too sharp and it fools the pixels and it creates the really weird wave pattern. So if you have a shirt that has like a really tight checkered pattern and you get that really weird wave, that's like moire, right? So that was happening with lower megapixel cameras. And so the way to overcome it was Fujifilm created this X-Trans technology that randomized the pixels. Instead of it going red, blue, green, red, blue, green, red, blue, green over and over again, they did red, red, blue, blue, green, red, red. Like, it was more randomized, which lowered the chances of the moire while not having an AA filter. And so at the time when Fujifilm had their 60 megapixel X-Trans sensor without an AA filter, but with the randomized color filter rate versus the Bayer color filter rate with an AA filter on a full frame that had, let's just say, similar or slightly more megapixels, Fujifilm could actually keep up in terms of sharpness to full frame at the time. But now that the megapixels are getting higher, I have a feeling that when APS-C, or if APS-C gets to that 45 megapixel level, there may be no need for the X-Trans technology. Because the primary reason for X-Trans was, again, to avoid those weird artifacts because of the limitations, right? So that's why the digital medium format does not have the X-Trans technology. At least that's the explanation that Fujifilm gave. Pogo, don't forget about record time. Thank you. Yes, I'm at 1 hour now, so thank you for mentioning that. And Frank, square or round lenses? That is a life-altering question. I like both. I like the round. This is from the X70, and I like it on the X100. But I also like the square ones. That's a tough one. As long as they look cool, square or round, octagonal, something in the mix between square and round, whatever it is, Take likes it as long as it's different. But that's a good question, a funny question, but a good one. Miss here, I like to see. And Gary Brooks, thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Thank you. It's very kind of you. That I'll help pay for my haircut. Camera girl charges me for my haircuts, which she should. I always tell people I paid my Tomo of what is it called now? Crescendo. It's a Japanese hairstylist. He used to cut my hair once a month, and I would pay him. So camera girl bought all the tools from Costco, all the hair cutting tools. She bought a little bib, and she's watched YouTube videos to improve her hair cutting skill set. And so I should pay her. So this is a paid haircut. So there you go, $10. I'm gonna tell camera girl that money is going to her. I already paid her, but that's a bonus, just for camera girl. I just jumped here. Sorry guys. Let me try to get back up. Here we go. What a big jump. Travis, also missed you, Travis. Thank you for your super chat. Have you requested the Pentax K3 Mark III for review? I would love to hear your take on this. I will ask. I'm a little bit worried though, because the last time they said I can have this for 6 months, and it's about 6 months. If I ask for the K3, they might be like, hey Taka, do you want to give back the GR3? And I want to keep it. And so, but I am curious. I'm not against DSLRs. I own SLRs, right? Like I showed you, here's my film SLR here. Here's another film SLR right here. I have more SLRs and DSLRs than I do have mirrorless and rangefinders. I probably have about 25 to 30, 25, maybe about 25 DSLRs or SLRs. I love SLRs for what they can do, but I also would like to test it. So thank you for mentioning that, Travis. I will try to get the Pentax K3 Mark III. It actually does look cool, and I do like K-mount lenses. I do think they're awesome. The Pentax, like Minolta, they're probably my two lens manufacturers that I really like when it was back in the old film days. Even medium format. Pentax makes great medium format lenses as well, so I would love to. But again, thank you, Travis, for your super chat. I appreciate that. And you know what I might do is I'm going to go to the end and then go backwards, if that's all right, guys. And I think for super chat, how do I put people up at the top there? Put username in timeline? How do I do that? I don't know what that means. But anyways, thank you. Thank you. So let me go to the bottom. Been an hour. Thank you, Cafe wherever you are. You know what? Going backwards doesn't make any sense. Does it make sense to go backwards? I'm going to try to go forwards, but I'm only going to answer questions. Brooklyn Girl, yes, this is the per gear. This is the per gear 25. The per gear 25. And I've actually used this for some talking head YouTube videos. And I love the steel rim. It reminds me of the steel rim Leica lenses. These lenses are amazing. They must have taken old Zeiss, Voigtlander, Leica design and just kind of out of patent lens designs and just remade them, because super sharp, no chroma. There's no chromatic aberrations that I could see. The 35 is even better, 35-1.6, and now they have a 35-1.2, and they still haven't sent it to me, but they said they would send it to me. beautiful glass, and they're cheap. They're like 60 bucks. If you guys just want to play around with old glass, instead of having to buy these mount adapters, just for like 60 bucks, 70 bucks, you get these per gear lenses for your Fujifilm. Guarantee you won't be disappointed. They're a lot of fun. You don't get autofocus. It's clickless aperture, but they're a lot of fun to shoot with. I enjoy it. On my days off, when I'm with Camera Girl, I usually stick on a per gear lens on because there's a lot of fun. Can I use the X Pro 1 battery on the new XE4? Vanessa, good question. Yes, you can. But the X Pro 1 would have used the non-insulated battery. Like they added the S, I think. Is it the S or the W? I can't remember. S. So what you have is the NPW 126 battery. The newer batteries has the S. S stands for shielded, which means they put a little bit more insulation around the battery because when the camera gets hot, it makes the battery hot. And when the battery gets hot, the lifespan of the battery shortens, and so the newer batteries will last longer, but the battery from the X Pro 1 definitely will work in pretty much every Fujifilm X series camera other than the X-T4. But every other Fujifilm camera, X series, your X Pro 1 battery will fit. It will work, yes. Do you think some photography accessories like bags are overpriced or priced too high? Don, good question. They are because they're niche, right? So meaning if they make, for instance, like if they make a sneaker or a shoe, right? And a shoe is specifically for golf or a shoe is specifically for hiking or not even hiking, let's just say like rock climbing, it's going to be more expensive because they know there's fewer people that are probably going to buy it and they make less because of it. Whereas a shoe like this is a mass market shoe that people can wear in almost any occasion. They probably make millions of these, so they can make the price lower. So making a camera backpack versus just like a regular backpack that's not meant for cameras, a regular backpack is going to be just cheaper because the market is open to anyone. Anyone can buy this to do anything versus a camera bag, which is like very narrow, right? There's only, let's just say, a regular backpack, potentially 7 billion people might consider buying it. A camera backpack, maybe 1 million people, right? So that's like 0.1% of the world population, whatever the number. But far few people are going to buy it, so and probably the company that makes the camera bags aren't at a level where they can sell a bag to everyone, right? So they are more niche of a brand, and because of it, the pricing will have to be a little bit more expensive. So to answer your question, yes, they are kind of expensive, but understanding the cost of making bags, and because it's such a niche bag, I can see why it's going to be more expensive just for that sake. Even if everything else is, like in terms of even the cost of production is exactly the same, the camera bag is going to cost more. Hey Ali, how's it going? Hi Take, and was cutting the bloody grass. Good to see you again. Yeah, sorry Ali. Enjoying my GR3 and nobody notices me. Yeah, exactly. When you walk around with the camera like this, nobody cares. Everyone ignores you. The cool dude behind the coffee shop counter, the cute girl at the cafe or whatever, nobody cares. GR3. If that's what you want, anonymity, nobody cares about you or looks at you, or even if you're photographing them, they don't care because the thing, what is that? Some kind of a 1980s, like what is this thing, right? If you want a lot of attention, you shoot with something like this. The cute girl and the cool dude, they'll all want to talk to you because the camera, so you're not cool. Maybe you are cool. But the camera is the coolest. It is cooler than you. And if you carry a camera like this, you carry a camera like this, everyone's going to want to talk to you. So I like both of them for different reasons. I like both the X100 series. I love the GR series. You guys know I love both of them. I have multiple GR cameras. In fact, I have my GR-D4, which is in high demand. It was the last small sensor Ricoh GR that they made. And it's funny, it's about the same size as the APS-C GR, right? About the same size. But of course, this has pop-up flash, and also has the exposure compensation dial toggle in the back. They removed it from here. But anyways, glad that you're enjoying it and glad that everyone's ignoring you. Middle of the TC1's fanciest point and shoot. It's awesome, Kevier. I love it. Love the 28mm f3.5 lens. And they did make a thread mount version of that. So if you shoot a Leica and you like or shoot an M mount camera and you like the middle of the TC1, you can buy that lens in LTM, the Leica thread mount, as well as the Ricoh GR. If you want the Ricoh GR lens for your Leica, Ricoh also made an LTM version of that lens. Volume is good, but the video has just started buffering at times. Yeah, I can see that. It kind of buffers, but I think it's funny because YouTube Studio says the connection is excellent. So maybe it's YouTube, perhaps. Some lagging. Thanks for letting me know, guys. Some lagging, some buffering. Yeah, sorry about that. Greetings from Germany. Hey, Numel, how's it going? Happy with the 35 f2 for compact sharpness, but wish I had a bit wider. 23 and 27 aren't that sharp, right? For close focusing, the 23 and the 27, the sharpness is it's not very good, no. Any alternative you can think of? The 23-1.4. The 23-1.4 is very sharp, up close and infinity, but it's a little expensive. Or you can consider the Viltrox 20... I think it's a 25 or 23, Viltrox 23-1.4, you can consider that as well. Remember the Pentax K01 mirrorless K-mount. I'd love if Nikon did a mirrorless, this is Toronto Boris, mirrorless F-mount with an in-body motor. Yeah, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? But I just don't think they will do it. There's no money left in that, eh? They should bring back the K1000 SLR. Come in late. Have you used the GFX100S? Jimmy D, no. I was told by Fujifilm I'm going to be getting it in the next couple of weeks, and I think that's why they extended my loan on the 50S. But they better not ask for this back just as I'm getting the 50S. They did that with the XS10. As I was getting the XE4, they made me return the XS10. Like, what the heck? I was going to create a video comparing the two. And so hopefully let me keep this while I have the 50S, I mean the 100S. But it's coming. And Gary, did I already thank you? If not, Gary, thank you for your super chat donation. I appreciate it. Jimmy, the next GR would be full frame. Honestly, I don't see much IQ difference between GR and my iPhone. Jimmy D, I don't know what you were doing, but there should be a huge difference between your GR and your iPhone. Although, to be honest, I have an iPhone 8, so maybe you were right. Maybe there's an algorithm thing, but you know, the GR has much better image stabilization, and because the sensor is larger, you do get that shallow depth of field even at f2.8. But in terms of dynamic range, the iPhone's processing is world class, and that's where I think camera manufacturers should be working with software developers and not doing it in-house. Work with companies like Visco or even like, I'm sure Apple won't loan their engineers to a camera manufacturer because that's technically their competition. But I don't see them being able to fit a full frame in something this small. It's going to have to be much larger. We can already see the divide between the smallest APS-C camera and the smallest all-in-one. You can see like the Leica Q and the Sony RX1, and then you look at something like a X100 or a GR that uses APS-C. There's quite a huge size difference, so I don't see, I mean, I could be wrong, and in fact, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I think we've kind of romanticized full frame, like somehow that's the ideal to hit, but I think for something like a point and shoot, there's no need for full frame. I don't see that somehow objectively full frame is objectively better than the APS-C other than it's bigger. Because if bigger is always better, then why don't they put a digital medium format sensor in here, right? Because it just gets bigger. So where is that balance of size to weight to sensor size ratio? I think APS-C is the best balance for making compact cameras, in my opinion. Sorry, Travis, he accidentally muted you. Oh, did I do that, Travis? Sorry. Cafe YVR, thank you for fixing whatever mistake I made. Kevir saying MS optical lenses I should try. Yeah, I just need, I know MS Optical. I just don't have a chance to access it. I'm not gonna buy lenses just to review. My brand isn't big enough to, I'm not, I'm not MKBHD or Unbox Therapy where, they bring in $300,000 a month and people pay them to do product showcases or whatever. I'm not that big, so if I can work with a distributor of MS Optics, which I always tell people I'm in the island that is called Canada in terms of this kind of stuff. If I was in the States, I could probably get access to MS Optics because there probably is a distributor in the US. But because I'm in Canada, I have a hard time accessing things. So that's my biggest problem. Even working with KEH, they're struggling to get products across the border because they've never done it before. So we're trying to figure out a way of how to get stuff across the border without them having to pay duties on stuff. So I would love to review MS Optics. I would love to review more products, but it's the matter of it coming into the country because, even when I get, like free stuff from different manufacturers, a lot of them don't know how to fill out the customs duty forms. So I still have to pay the duty of it coming in. And it's not that much, usually 20, 30, 40 bucks, but in a month, if I get 4 or 5 or 6 products, I'm paying $200 that month just to pay the customs of stuff being sent to me for me to create a review that I end up making $5 on the video, right? Or $10 on the video. So I'm a little bit more conscious about the time I have that it takes to create a video and how I can monetize it in different ways. One good way for me to monetize is through Fujilove because they pay for my articles. And so I know if I create a YouTube video for it, as well as take pictures, share it on Instagram, and write an article, then at least I know it covers all my costs. Having KEH as a sponsor has been great for me because now they're pretty open with me doing videos and they will sponsor the video. So that's opened up a whole new revenue stream for me, which is really great for me. And they're really cool with whatever I decide to make. So I'm gonna try to make a KH video this week. I'm still brainstorming and I thought maybe by talking to you guys I can come up with some concept, but I've been kind of busy answering these questions, which I love doing. But we will see what happens. So stay tuned. Again, I need more help to create more content, and at this time, I'm just still kind of struggling to create more content. So, Mark K, okay, what is the super cute analog camera? Yeah, it's the Ricoh GR1. This is my favorite film point and shoot of all time. You can tell how kind of beat up it is because I've had it for 23 years, coming up in a week. I've had this for 23 years. I bought it in May or April. I bought it in April or May. When did I buy it? In May. In May of 1998. And this is still with me, so I love it. Thanks for asking. Kavir, full frame is overrated. I mean, I understand both sides of the argument. If you shoot video and you do a lot of isolation shots and you want shallow depth of field, it's a lot harder to get those really shallow isolation shots on APS-C. You have to get lenses like the 50 f1, 56 1.2, 35 f1.4, and even then on full frame equivalent, it's almost like a 50 mil 1.8, right? So I understand from a videographer's point of view, 35 mil is a really good balance. But for stills photographers, and especially if you're doing wildlife or sports and you're kind of looking far out, to me, there's more of an advantage of shooting APS-C because when you get to like a 600 f4 or 300 2.8, you get like a 200 f2 on the Fujifilm. It's beautiful, and even getting like super zoom, a 75 to 300 on an APS-C works out to be like what is that, like a 135 to 450. And you try to get a 135 to 450 zoom on a full frame, the thing is huge. And so there is advantages to APS-C. There's definitely advantages to full frame. Just by the fact that the sensor is bigger doesn't automatically make it better, right? Just like saying medium format is better than full frame in terms of what? Resolution? Because this camera has 50 megapixels, and there's full frame cameras with 50 megapixels. So it's not just megapixels, it's about pixel density, it's about the technology that's in the sensor itself. How good is it in low light? I mean, how good is it in high ISO? If you need autofocus, how good is the autofocus? This one sucks. All those things come into play, not just the fact that the sensor is bigger. It's almost like in the car world saying, my car is better than your car because I have a 5-liter V8 and you have a 2-liter inline 4, right? But if that 2-liter inline 4 is supercharged, I mean, think about F1 sports car racing, right? Those cars have, what do they have, like 1,500 horsepower? Those are all like 2-liter engines, aren't they? I mean, I'm not huge into F1 like I used to be, but a lot of them were like inline or like a V10 or something like that, but it's like a 1.6 liter, 1.5 liter engines. They're tiny. And so there are reasons why full frame is better than APS-C or better than medium format, digital medium format, but there are times where APS-C is better than 35 mil as well, right? So it kind of depends on what you're doing. And for what I do for film, definitely 35 mil is better for me, even medium format. It's just a better balance for me. When it comes to digital, my personal digital workflow, I prefer APS-C because I could have got into any system. Because as a reviewer, Ali, thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. Because I review gear, a lot of you guys might not know this, and I don't talk about this very much. As a what do you call it? As a media, most manufacturers will give me media pricing. So Canon, Ricoh Pentax, Nikon. Like if I said to Canon, hey, like, this is bigheadtaco, would love to buy this camera. What is your media discount? They will give me a discount off of all the products. So I could get into any system. And on top of that, I have access to their review gear. So if they have like a media gear that once it's gone through its media cycle, they'll say they end up selling it off. I could say, hey, Canon, your whatever camera you have, once it's through the cycle, I would love to buy it. I have access to all that stuff. So I could have picked any system, but I chose Fujifilm. Not because I had to or anything, because that was the system that I wanted to go with, that I felt that would work best for my workflow. Now, my videographer, Chris Meets Chris, he loves Fujifilm, but as a videographer, he loves that shallow depth of field, and he wanted better autofocus, so he just switched to Canon. He has a Canon EOS R, and he has a 16-35 f2.8. He wanted a shallower depth of field. For his vlogging, which I don't know why he wants shallow depth of field for vlogging, but that's what he wants. But as well as for some of his product shot isolation shots, he wanted f2.8 full frame. So that's why he jumped over to the EOS R, and I totally understand. But he didn't go over there just because it's full frame. Anyways, sincerest, hello, and it is now 1 hour and 23 minutes. Thank you everyone that joined. Thank you for all your comments. Ali and everyone else that gave super chat, thank you so much. It definitely does help me and my channel to sustain this live. And I'm gonna try, even if I don't announce it, actually I can't. Next Sunday is my day off with Camera Girl. It's my wedding anniversary day with Camera Girl, so you won't see me next Sunday. So I'm probably gonna skip live next week. But thank you for joining me this week, and I'm gonna try in 2 weeks ahead. All right, so thank you so much for joining, and let's say happy shooting. Let's pick something here. Let's pick Minolta. All right, and happy shooting. Peace.